y'all, it's your girl Portia Monique, managing editor of Rolling Out Detroit, and we are back with Black, Beautiful, and Brilliant. Today I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, and I will let them all introduce themselves.
Hi everybody, I'm Tonya Sherrill, a publicist and serial entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Crawford, entrepreneur and sports business manager turned property owner and developer.
Hi, I'm Terry Lee, an award-winning producer for an all-news radio station, also a film critic and creator of the ICU Awards and awards program specifically for low-budget independent filmmakers.
Hi, and I'm Kim Betty, high-performance coach in business, life, and love too.
So today we have a great topic for you. Grandmothers, Madeas, and Big Mamas. And Tanya's going to take us through that conversation. Tonya, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Portia. So, ladies, recently I read this article about Tyler Perry and that he's putting Madea to rest. So it made me think a little bit about the Madea character. Some people love her, some people hate her. So I wanted to get a feel about how you guys thought about Madea, number one, as the gun-toting, strong, resilient, grandmother holding the family together. And while in essence, not all grandmothers are gun-toters, they are the nucleus of most families. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, what I'd like to say about that is watching Tyler Perry stories, some of that was very new to me. The topic of the Madea. However, the strong matronly figure, I believe that it was very common in most households that I grew up around.
Our mother did everything. She made sure we not only had food to eat every day, but we had clean clothes, new clothes when she could afford them. She got up and went to work every day, took us where we had to go, brought us home. So where we didn't really have a Madea, so to speak, we had our mother who was, and still is, I would say, the nucleus of our family.
Absolutely. And for me, as a small child, my mother was a young mother. And so I had the privilege of knowing not just my great-grandmother, but my great-great-grandmother. And so I spent a lot of time with my great-grandmother, and that's where I learned to cook, and I learned so many things. But most importantly for me, I learned the value of family, because it was just at her house where we all gathered. Extended family, people would come in from out of town. And so she was just that nucleus. And so it makes me think about how we are now. I'm a recent new grandmother. I don't use the term grandmother. My granddaughter calls me Gigi. And so it just makes me think like, wow, the whole role of grandmother has changed over the years. It's no longer grandma's at home baking apple pies. Grandma is running businesses.
And you know what? I'm a grandmother too, a brand new grandmother. And I keep telling myself, I want to leave a legacy for my grandchild. So that's one of the reasons that I do everything that I do. Everything that I've done to this point, I always said I was doing it for my family and my son in particular. But now it's like, I want to leave something for my grandchild so that hopefully she won't have to work as hard as I had to work.
What it makes me think of is that he's retiring his grandmother. A lot of our moms in our generation are passing away.
Absolutely.
So my mother was the matriarch, the grandmother, and so now she is passed away. And so we really don't have that. I see myself in that role, but I just can't quite pull it off because I'm out of town. I'm not in the same city that my family is. So who's doing Christmas? Who's doing Thanksgiving? Right. Things like that. Like who's going to pass down those traditions? Now, each one of our families are having their own Christmas, own Thanksgiving. So we really are not pulling it together anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I had a very different experience growing up. I didn't have the role of a grandmother in the home. I had a grandfather, but I realized when I got older that was something that I missed. That was something that I needed, and I just didn't get it. My maternal grandmother died when I was 5, and my paternal grandmother died just recently, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. However, I never developed a relationship with her, and I do feel as if that's what's missing for me. And so, like I said in one of the other episodes, I have 2 teenage sons, and it's very important for me to make sure that my sons know my mom. For that reason, we brought her out to Detroit. She retired early. She moved out to Detroit. She lives with us. She does 6 months on and 6 months off. She'll go back to California. She's about to go back right now. But it was very important for me to make sure that they had that experience with their grandmother, because what it does is she teaches them values and principles that I necessarily can't do because I'm the new age mom. I'm not a millennial mom, but I'm still that new age mom where I'm on the go. I'm a hot mama. I gotta go. I gotta work. I got things to do. I'm traveling. I'm living my life. So while I'm doing that, mom is at home. She's making sure that, well, grandma for them, but she's making sure that they know how to cook. She's making sure that they know how to clean. She's making sure that all the things that I probably should be doing, but she's making sure that they have that experience. And that's one of the reasons why it was so important to me.
Absolutely. And it comes to a point where we have to balance, you know, even as a grandmother, and because I had those experiences, I want my granddaughter to have those experiences. I want to teach her how to cook. I want my home to be a safe haven for her. But on the flip side of that, I'm running businesses. I'm busy. I divorced when my youngest was 1. And so I raised my children alone. But my grandmother and my grandparents were like the other parent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so they stepped in and they, you know, I was working 60 hours a week. And when I came home, my grandparents had retired. They picked my children up from school, take them to my home, feed them dinner, let them do their homework, and take baths.
Even from the early days, I don't think that there was one traditional grandmother, now that I'm thinking about it here. Because my paternal grandmother was a co-owner of her husband, my grandfather's business. And it was essentially in those times, sort of $1 million business. So at that time, she was an investor. She was a co-owner. She was an investor in a lot of different properties around the city that they owned. And she was a hot mama. You know, they owned a nightclub, Lee Sensation, and she spent a lot of her time in that nightclub, making sure that nightclub grew and prospered and was self-sustaining. Now, on my maternal side, my grandmother was more of a quiet companion. And they had the 6 children, which is similar to a lot of the families in those days where there were quite a few siblings. But she was quiet. And she left us. I was 9 years old when she left us. But she left in that family certain traditions, like, you know, the strength of agriculture. So all of them were pretty much farming in their backyards, you know, growing fresh vegetables, making preserves and storing those and opening up in the winter so we would have good jellies and jams. So even then, there were more examples. You know, I do think that, you know, we kind of even genetically pick up on what is most comfortable for us, because I feel like I have both of those in me.
Absolutely. So do you ladies feel like because we've transitioned so far that there's almost a yearning to go back to some of those traditions? You know, we've come so far with technology and business and just being so much. But then for me, like I said, there's this yearning of, I want my granddaughter to have those experiences and not at the cost of me running a business.
I think it's also just also instilling those values. Like my mother made sure that we all knew how to cook. I made sure my daughter knew how to cook. So even though we are not all together in that unit, everybody can stand on their own 2 feet. You know, they can cook for their kids. They can make the Thanksgiving dinner and the Christmas dinner. So that's the traditions that we pass down. It just looks different.
Yeah, you know, I used to always wish that we could go down south in the, you know, when we were out of school and stay with a family member down there. But we didn't have that because everybody was here. But I would have to say, I don't think we can go back there. I think we are too far gone now. I think technology has taken over. I think kids nowadays, and this is just my own opinion, I think kids nowadays are interested in, you know, what's out there in the world, and not necessarily that they want to, you know, come home. And personally, I just don't really see a lot of young people with that yearning.
I just think things have changed in terms of how things were done in the past and how they're going to be done now. And as it relates to agriculture, there's a new kind of agriculture that I was introduced by my son. They're not going to farm in the backyard, but they have new technology that enables them to farm without soil, indoors, and they're teaching how to do so without a lot of the side effects that are caused by these other kinds of things that have caused E. coli and so forth. So I don't think that it's not of interest. I think that it has to, come with the new age.
And I get that we have a new age, but I think that families are more divided now that change has
Oh,
occurred.
absolutely.
Families are more divided, and you don't have that person to say, "Oh, you're mad at this person. You're going to talk it out and get over with it."
That's what I'm talking
You know
about.
what?
Right.
Absolutely. So now it's
The
like,
big mama
well,
with not
yes,
literally a gun, but somebody
just
who's gonna,
about, like,
or the
oh,
soul
you-
food mama,
right.
the soul food mama that even
Absolutely.
from heaven got the kids back together.
absolutely,
Like that.
absolutely.
Like I said, my maternal grandmother passed away when I was 5, but she had 9 kids. And so I was the youngest, so to speak, but I was a granddaughter, right? But everyone else was the brothers and sisters, and they were my aunts and uncles. But when she passed away, you saw the dynamic of the family changed instantly. My aunt at the time, I think she may have been 16, she was running away. Uncles, they dropped out of school and they're doing their own thing. And grandfather couldn't really hold it together as much as the grandmother could. And so you saw the dividing of the family, so to speak. And it's sad to say, but even to this day, my family is still not that cohesive unit that they once were when my grandmother was alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like how your mom does it though. She's kind of a little bit of both to me. You said 6 months she was doing her hot mama thing,
she
and then the other 6 months.
Yeah, so 6 months she's in Detroit, and the other 6 months she's in San Francisco, and she's about to leave in maybe about 2 weeks. And my first question to her every morning is, when are you coming back? Because we might not be able to function that well without you in the house. So we need you to come back. Well, they need you to come back because I'm gonna be gone.
Absolutely.
But that's keeping it real. You know what I mean? I think it's having peace.
Absolutely.
If you're craving for something that's not going to happen again, or you are judging the hot mama, because I've judged some hot mamas, like you're not cooking for your kids,
Nope.
you're not doing that, you're eating the cereal and the Pop-Tarts.
Yep.
But why judge another sister? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And even for me, so I'm a caregiver for my grandmother, and I watch as daily. So, she's in her late 80s, and every day her concern is about just about everybody in the family. So if there's an accident, she sees it on the news.
She's calling
does so-and-so
people.
take, around this time to go to work, because she's concerned. And I think about being a teenager, and getting angry with my parents. And I could go to my grandmother and she'd give me that time to cool down. But then, okay, you got to go back home and work this out. You can run to grandmother. And then another thing I noticed is that she says whatever, is on her mind, good, bad, and ugly. She's going to say it to you,
She's earned it.
But she's also going to be your biggest supporter. Yeah. Right. So even growing up, you think about the big mamas, that's where you got that nurturing. And even mothers, you get that nurturing, but at the same time, they're like, don't you ever do that again. Or, and you just took it differently coming from a grandparent than you would a parent. Right. So it was a different relationship. And so I think that as a society, we have so many lost children, and, even like I said, it was a struggle for me because, I have to work to provide for my kids. So I can't be there all the time, but they still need everything that they need from a parent. And so a lot of kids are missing that because they don't have that. And so you have kids now, like I've never seen so many kids disrespectful. And, I'm in the gas station, there's middle school age kids cursing. And I'm like, when did this happen?
Well, you know what? It's good you brought that up because it's not just the kids. I think they get a lot of that at home because I see, when I was younger growing up, I remember men would open the door for a woman. Nowadays, a man is gonna walk right through that door.
Wait for you to
Exactly. Yeah, and so I know sometimes my son will go places with me, and people will say, you know, they'll look like, wow, because he was raised right. He will hold the door. But it just amazes me how nowadays men don't want to hold the door for you.
Absolutely. And so it just makes us think, are we sacrificing too much?
Yes.
You know, we can be that professional, you know, first black woman of this or that, but are we risking losing our kids to this crazy world?
And the
you know?
traditions that we had, or the praying
Absolutely.
grandma. The grandmas was praying. They were in the prayer
Absolutely.
closet
We got a
praying for the
praying
kids.
grandma.
You
Right.
know, like nobody could pray like the grandmas could pray. You know, and is that even going away?
Absolutely. And I have a funny story about that. My grandmother, when she was younger and could get on her knees, she would get on her knees. I can remember being a kid, like probably 5 or 6. And she'd say, I'm going in my room to pray. Do not bother me.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, this lady's in here for a long time. And I would go in and peel up her eyelid, and she, didn't I tell you? You know?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, how long does it take to pray? Because you've been in here for a mighty long time. But when I was a kid, I'd go to my great-grandmother's house the day school got out, and wouldn't go back to 2 days before school, you know, started back. So we had the whole summer where we were just, you know, getting all this wisdom and knowledge. And we don't have that anymore.
I don't know that anymore it can just be placed on one person. And I think that's because, you know, what we talked about is what the Madea served as, or the Big Mama served as. She that was a place where everybody sort of got their instructions. It's everybody's responsibility to take some of that, you know, and then pass it along.
Because men are expected to do more. I mean, before it wasn't the emotional connection and the nurturing and showing up. I remember my family saying, like, why are the men at the birthday parties? I'm like, they come to the birthday parties now. Why are they at the baby showers? Because the men come now. So you're right. It could be the whole nucleus.
That is
It's almost like a circle now, where it's coming back, where men are starting to realize the importance of them being relevant and present, where and for a time, as you said, men weren't supposed to be there. That wasn't manly.
Right.
Well, we certainly hope that's the case, Sylvia. And it's been definitely a great topic of conversation today with you ladies. It's been fun. It's been uplifting, just hearing everyone's different experiences. But I think that is a wrap for today's show. And thank you all again. Thank you again for watching. And this is another episode of Black, Beautiful, and Brilliant.